Hello everybody, welcome to the JavaScript course. In this video, I'm going to discuss the array methods. There are many methods that we can use for arrays. Here are some of the methods. The first one to introduce is the splice method and the slice method, which are quite similar. And the second one is called the concat method, which is used to do the concatenation of arrays. The third one to discuss is the forEach function, which is used together with a certain function. And then I will discuss the indexOf method to indicate the position of a certain element in the array. And then I would like to discuss the filter method, followed by the map method. And finally, I'm going to discuss the split and join methods. Now, let us see the HTML file first. The HTML file is quite simple. I have a title here and a heading. And after that, I just link this HTML file to a JavaScript file called myscript.js, which is put in the JS folder. And now we can go to the JavaScript file. The JavaScript file starts with the sentence like this one. I want to use the strict mode, so I have to say use strict on the first line of the JavaScript file, which is here. Now, let us start with the first method, which is the splice method. The splice method is like this. The splice method tries to delete some elements, starting with a certain index, and then after the deletion, I can add some more elements after the starting position indicated in the splice method. Let us see an example. Suppose I have a certain array with 4 numbers. And if I want to delete something and add something at a certain position, indicated by the start index, I can do something like this. Okay, what does this line mean? Here the first parameter is just referring to the index, which is index 1. I would like to go to the index 1, and then I would delete 2 elements. So I'm going to delete 2 and 3. And after the deletion, I'm going to insert 3 more elements, which are 5, 6, and 7, to the original position that I started the deletion. That means I will have 3 more numbers after the value of 1. So you expect that I have 1, 5, 6, 7, and 4 as the answer to the content of the numbers array. So let us see the result. Okay, let me save the file and reload the page. Yes, you can see 1, 5, 6, 7, and 4. That is the meaning of the splice method. So the removed numbers are already stored in this variable, so I can just show it up here. Okay. Let me try to show the removed numbers. Save. Reload. Yes, you can see that those numbers removed by the slice method can be stored in another array. So I just did this process by letting a variable called removed numbers. And we can notice that we can use negative indices to indicate the positions of the elements to do the splicing. But even though we use the negative indices, we have to notice that the number of words to delete would still count from left to right. That means we cannot control the number of words to delete from the right to the left. So we still go in the left to right direction, shown like this one. So let me see an example. So now I'm going to start with index -4, which means the second element in our array, which is 5 actually. So I start with this position, and then I want to remove 2 elements starting with this one by doing so to the right hand side. So I'm going to delete 5 and 6. So what would remain is that I will have 1, 7, and 4 as the answer. So let me see the result. So now I can use the red window to see the numbers remaining in the numbers array. Save. Reload. Yes, 1, 7, and 4. So the process is like this. I start with this particular index, which is index -4, and then I go to the right by 2 elements. That means I'm going to delete these 2 elements, and I will have these 3 elements remaining. And of course, I can just print out the removed numbers to see that 5 and 6 are really removed. Save. Reload. Yes, 5 and 6 are already stored in the removed numbers. So that is the way to use the splice method to add something and delete something. And then the second method to introduce is the slice method. We just do the slicing by indicating the starting index and the ending index. And the slicing process will stop before the end index. So let me see an example. Suppose I have these numbers in a certain array. And then how can I do the demonstration? Let me show you my way. Now I want to remain the elements with indices 1 and 2. Because it ends with 3, it means that I don't go to index 3. That's why I can only obtain elements with indices 1 and 2. So I will have these 2 things coming out. Save. Reload. Yes, I can have these 2 numbers coming out because it starts with index 1 and it ends before index 3. So I will have these 2 elements coming up. And of course, the indices can be negative. So that means we count the indices from left to right. So let me see an example like this one. Now it means that it starts with index -4. So you will see that I will start with 12. And then I will end at index -2. But of course, we can't reach -2 actually. We can just reach -3. So in this case, I just obtain these 2 numbers out of my original numbers array. So let me see the result. Save. Reload. Yes, I will see 12 and 13 corresponding to index -4 and index -3. So we can see that the indices can be negative numbers. Okay, the third method to introduce is the concatenation. So how can we concatenate arrays? Suppose I have 2 arrays with these contents. If I want to join these 2 arrays, I can use the concat method like this one. Now I want to join the 2 arrays, and after the joining, I want to add 2 more elements at the end of the joined array. So the keyword to use is the concat method. And I want to join array 1 with array 2, and additionally I want to introduce more elements to my joined array. So what will happen? Let me see the result. Save. Reload. Yes, I can see 5 elements in my joined array. So all these 5 strings are already put in the concatenated array. After the concatenation, I would like to show you the forEach method. When we use the forEach method for arrays, we have to use it with a certain function. And the function is something like this. We have to use the items from the array, and possibly we may use the indices as well. And additionally, we can also mention the array we are using in the function. The idea is to pass a function that plays with at least the items of the array. So when we use the function, we have to at least make sure that the item will be used. So the item is the required parameter, but the index and array are optional. Is that a bit abstract? I think so. So let us do an example. Suppose I have a certain array which mentions the cash received by each person. So there are 4 persons and each person has this amount shown in the array. Suppose I want to find out the average amount of the cash received by all these 4 people. How can I do it? Suppose I want to find out the average, and I just set up a variable called average cash first, and then I can do addition of all the 4 people's quantities, and then I can do the division. So in order to use the forEach method to loop over the array content, in order to do the calculation of the average amount, I have to set up my function first. The first one to introduce is a certain arrow function. So I can use an arrow function to combine with the forEach method, and then I can just tell this array to do my calculation. So the idea is like this. I set up a certain arrow function after using the forEach method, and the array function is like this. I want to loop over all the items in my cash by person array, and I'm also going to mention the index and the array itself. But of course, we have to notice that these 2 parts are not necessary in using the forEach method. After I have got the item, I divide the amount by the number of people, and then I add it to become the aggregate average cash for all the 4 people. And then I just print this variable out. So that is the basic idea. I use the forEach method followed by a certain arrow function. Save. Reload. Yes, you can see that I'm going to loop over every single element in my cash by person array. So person 0, which means the first person, has $200 in my given array shown here. So I just list the content of my array by using the array parameter. Person 1 has $400, person 2 has $300, person 3 has $500. So all the contents of the array are shown. And of course, during the display, I'm also able to calculate the average cash by using this formula. Yes, you can see that the average cash is now 350 according to the formula shown here. So it is equivalent to adding all these 4 numbers and dividing the sum by the number of people. In addition to using an arrow function, I can use a traditional function without this kind of arrow operation. So suppose I have the original cash by person array, and I'm going to let some more variables. I want to find out the sum of the cash received by all these people. I can use the forEach method together with a certain function. And the function is called getSum, which is declared now. So when I use the function, I just refer to this function shown here, which means that I access the items from my cash by person array, and then I just add all these amounts up to the sum variable, which is already declared outside the function. So how can I find that my answer is correct? I can just print out the sum. Okay, let us see the result. Save. Reload. Yes, the sum is 1400 because it is obtained by adding all these things together by using the forEach method together with a certain traditional function called getSum declared outside the forEach method. Okay, we can go to another method called indexOf. It is just used to indicate the position of a certain element in a given array. Suppose I've already got an assorted array like this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 elements are stored in the array. The first one is an integer, the second one is a string, the third one is a Boolean value, and the fourth one is an object. So if I want to indicate the position of a certain element in the array, I can do something like this. Suppose I want to find out the index corresponding to the element with false as the value. It means that I'm going to pick up this particular index, which should refer to number 2. Let me see the result. Save. Reload. Yes, number 2 has come out because it is the third element in the assorted array, which means that I will have an index of 2. What will happen if an element doesn't really exist? The indexOf method will return -1. So let me demonstrate it to you now. Now you see that there is no string called hello in the assorted array. So you will expect that the value is -1. Save. Reload. Yes, -1 has come out because that just means that I can't find this particular element from my given array. Now we go to the filter method. A filter method has to be used with a certain function. So the idea is like this. The filter method returns an array of objects that satisfies some of the conditions mentioned in the function. So the function here is going to do the filtering. So when the function is set to do something, the filter is going to give the array of elements indicated by the function. So the filter method is trying to find something from an array of objects. So let us see an example. Suppose I've already got an array of objects. So this is an array, and this array has already contained 3 objects, all of which refer to some properties of some vehicles, the vehicle type as well as the color of the vehicles. If I want to do the filtering, I can do an example like this one. Suppose I want to find out the buses coming from this array of objects. How can I do it? Let me show you my way. Now this statement is like this one. I want to find out all the buses stored in the array of objects, so that when I check the vehicle property, I'm able to get the key as the string bus. So I'm going to pick up these 2 elements, the first one and the third one. So they are objects, and I'm going to pick up these 2 objects. So how can I show the content of the buses? I can use a for loop. So this for loop is quite simple. I just loop over the content of the buses variable, and then I show the values of the vehicle key and the color key. So save. Reload. Yes, I can show bus, which is the vehicle type, and the red, which is the color. So this is the first object to show. And I'm able to show the second object, which is also a bus and is having a color of white. So this is an approach to use the filter method by using a certain filter function, which is in the form of an arrow function in my case. Okay. If the element cannot be found, then I will get an empty array. So let me show you an example to demonstrate this effect. My idea is like this. I want to find out the vehicles with green color, but we can see that there is no green color in any of the objects contained in this array called array of objects. So you will expect that the array obtained by this filter method is 0. So let me show you the answer. Save. Reload. Yes, 0. So I'm not able to really find out any content to be put in the green's array. So the array length is 0. Another method to discuss is the map method. It also follows a certain function. So we have to map each element to a calculated value determined by the function. And the result will just an array of the calculated values. So let us see an example. Suppose we have 3 sides of the 3 squares. Square sides is the array, and I'm going to find out the area of these rectangles with these 3 sides. How can I do it? I can use the map method. So my idea is like this. I want to do a mapping so that the squares of the sides will be contained in the area array. So the first atom will be squared, the second one will be squared, and the third one will also be squared. So this is just the arrow function which has to be handled by the map method. So when I want to print out the area, I just use the alert window, save, reload. Yes, I can see all the 3 sides are squared, and these values are just the areas of the squares with the original 3 sides. The next method is called the split method. So you see I have a string, and I'm going to produce the words coming from this sentence. So the intuitive idea is to split the string, which can be treated as an array in JavaScript. So it just wants to indicate the spaces, and then the splitting can be done. So let me see the effect of doing so. So I want to do the splitting by recognizing a certain space character, so that the words can be stored in my words array. And let me see the result. Save. Reload. Yes, when I use the alert window to show the content of the words array, I'm able to see that we have 4 elements. Today is a holiday. So we have all these 4 elements obtained by the sentence string. Okay. And of course, we can find out the length of this words array. Save. Reload. Yes, 4 has come out because the words array has 4 elements after the splitting action. The final one to discuss is the join method of arrays. So I have already got the words array, which consists of 4 words or 4 strings. So how can I join them together? I can use this join method, and let me show you my approach. Now I want to join the 4 words by adding a hyphen in between 2 words. So let me see the result by printing it out using an alert window. Save. Reload. Yes, you can see that the words are joined by the hyphen. So that is the basic idea of using some array methods. In this video, I've already discussed a lot of these methods. The first one is the splicing, which can help us remove some elements and insert some other elements into a given array. The slice method is going to pick up some elements by indicating the starting position and the ending position. And we can concatenate arrays, and we can even add some more elements to the joint array. And also we have talked about the forEach method, which is used together with a function to do some operation, so that we can loop over each element of the array, and we can handle the elements by using the function declared in the forEach method. We also discussed the indexOf method to indicate the indices of an element of an array. We can also do filtering, which is used together with a certain function. And after using the filtering, I'm able to pick up some elements from an array. And we can also do the mapping, so that the elements in a given array can be handled, and the result can be stored in another array. We also talked about the split method to split a certain string into some words. And finally, we also talked about the join method to join some strings or array contents into an entity. This is the end of the video. If you have any questions about my video, please leave your questions on the comment section below the video. If you like this video, please give me a like and please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.